On a freezing winter night in ancient Goguryeo, the wind howls around a crumbling thatched roof hut. Inside, a solitary woman works late into the evening, the rhythmic thud of her wooden laundry mallets echoing into the darkness. She is raising a child alone. Years ago, as a palace maid, she was ordered to attend a visiting diplomat from the Chinese Wei dynasty. They shared a brief connection before he returned across the border, unaware he was leaving her pregnant. The boy grows up marked by his lineage. His skin is darker than anyone else in the village. The locals call him Huk Hoja, the dark-faced barbarian. He spends his childhood isolated, enduring constant mockery, and building a deep, quiet rage toward the father who abandoned him to this life. When a society completely shuts a person out, it forces a decision. The marginalized individual can either let the cruelty harden into a desire for revenge, or they can leave to hunt down the context of their own existence. For this boy, the anger eventually turns into a desperate need for answers. Realizing her son is consumed by his bitterness, the mother makes a choice. She hands him 2 pristine gold coins. They are the only physical proof of his father, left behind as a token of that brief encounter. But she attaches a strict condition to the coins. She makes him swear that if he finds his father, he will hold no hatred in his heart. Instead, she asks him to dedicate his life to the Buddhist path, to become a monk who alleviates the suffering of others. Taking the name Ado, the young man shaves his head, dons the robes of a monk, and walks away from the only home he has ever known. He crosses the continent into the vast expanse of the Chinese Empire, tracking the name attached to those 2 gold coins. Finding the origin of your pain is often the easy part. The actual test comes afterward, deciding whether to let that discovery feed the anger you've carried your whole life, or to finally let it go. Ado eventually locates the man. His father, Agolma, is now a high-ranking minister at the center of the Wei imperial court. Ado presents the 2 gold coins, and the minister realizes the dark-skinned monk standing before him is the son he never knew he had. The revelation shatters the older man. Weeping with regret for the decades of neglect, he begs Ado to stay. He has no male heirs, and he offers to officially adopt Ado on the spot, immediately elevating the former village outcast to a position of immense wealth and political influence. Ado looks at the life of luxury laid out in front of him, and he declines. The lifelong anger that drove him across an empire simply vanishes. He realizes that accepting this political power would mean abandoning the promise he made to the woman who raised him. He chooses the vow. Ado walks away from the Wei court and enters a monastery, studying under Master Huncheng, one of the most revered monks in China, dedicating himself entirely to the spiritual path. Walking away from an empire is difficult, but actively forgiving the person who caused your suffering requires a different kind of strength. Ado realizes that his destiny isn't tied to inheriting someone else's legacy. It lies in building his own. Years later, his training complete, Ado returns to the Korean peninsula. He sets his sights on Silla, a fiercely isolated kingdom. Silla's rulers view foreign beliefs as a direct threat to the state, and they have a history of capturing and executing any monks who cross their borders. Ado is walking into a highly militarized society. Silla is a warrior culture, built on strict hierarchies and territorial expansion. The concept of universal compassion and nonviolence is entirely foreign, making Ado's mission a death sentence. He slips past the border guards and makes his way to a rural village. To avoid detection, he hides his identity and takes a job as a manual laborer, working in the fields for a local landowner named Morie. For over a year, Ado lives a dual existence. By day, he breaks his back doing grueling farm work. By night, in a small, hidden room, he quietly shares the teachings of the Buddha with Morie, his sister Sasi, and a slowly growing underground network of villagers. The secret eventually leaks out. When Silla authorities arrive in the village hunting for the foreign infiltrator, Ado doesn't run. To protect Morie and his family from being slaughtered for harboring him, Ado steps out of hiding and hands himself over to the guards. Ado turns his sermons on compassion into a physical shield. By placing himself between the state's guards and the family that sheltered him, he shows the villagers that his commitment to their safety is absolute, even when the cost is his own life. Stripped, beaten, and bound in ropes, Ado is dragged into a palace dungeon. Interrogated as a foreign spy, his fate is sealed. He sits in the cold cell, preparing for his execution at dawn. But as his final night deepens, strange noises echo through the stone walls. He hears the frantic, desperate sounds of a shamanic ritual. The king's daughter has fallen severely ill, and after 3 months of rituals, she is dying. From his cell, Ado sends a message that he can help. Brought before the desperate king, Ado uses his knowledge, specifically the burning of medicinal incense he learned during his travels, to treat the princess. She recovers, and the king's deep-seated prejudice against the foreign monk dissolves overnight. This single act of healing does more to integrate Ado's faith into Silla than any sermon. Saving his executioner's daughter makes it impossible for the king to treat him as a criminal. The execution is cancelled. The king grants Ado state-sponsored support, providing land to build Dorisa, the first Buddhist temple in Silla. With this royal protection, Morya's sister takes her vows, becoming the nation's first recognized Buddhist nun. But the political safety net doesn't last. The king passes away, leaving the throne vulnerable. The conservative court officials, who still oppose foreign teachings, immediately prepare to purge Ado and his followers. Ado understands exactly what will happen next. Rather than staying to fight a bloody political battle and risk the lives of his new students, he quietly leaves the temple. He retreats deep into a mountain cave, sealing himself off from the world. For days, the distant sound of his chanting echoes down the mountainside. Then, after weeks of faint rhythmic prayer, the sound stops. When his followers finally search the mountain, Ado is gone, leaving no trace behind. His life functioned exactly like the incense he used in the palace. Some people take the pain, poverty, and isolation inflicted on them and use it to burn the world down. Others, like Ado, endure the fire, reduce themselves to ash, and leave an entirely new fragrance behind for everyone else to breathe.